tell me about writing that song, the big hit that started off the hockey season.
Well, that wasn't the sort of the goal behind it necessarily at the beginning.
It's a good pun.
I didn't know that.
Good hockey joke.
Thank you very much. I learned from Ron McLean, the best, best in the business. Yeah, we didn't know that it was going to open up the season that way, and certainly gave not just the song but this whole record a real kick in the right direction. But yeah, when you're sitting there in your basement, you don't necessarily think of these grandiose schemes for where your music is going to take you, or the context it's going to be listened to in. You're just very much focused on trying to write a song, and that song was no different. I didn't know that was going to be the song that would become the first single and sort of start everything up again.
It's interesting that they're all 5-minute singles, eh? The past 3.
That's because I'm not trying to write singles. Yeah. I mean, that's the truth. I think that and there's always that fight. Well, not a fight, but there's the debate on do you shorten them, do you not shorten them. But when you're sitting there writing them, you just write the song until it feels like it's done. And even then, 5 minutes usually means that you've had to cut it off short somewhere. And I'm trying to rein it in. I had this mandate that going into this record, I was okay, no songs over 3.5 minutes long.
There's a few.
Yeah, most of them. Most of them. So I haven't succeeded. But so next time I'm gonna have to set the target at about 1.5 minutes, and then I'll.
Oh, like Beatles pop songs.
I'll come in somewhere around 4 minutes if I set it at 1.5 minutes.
There you go. So. That's not bad. It must be fun to jam out live because that outro now that you're playing the songs, what, a couple shows here and there, one-offs kind of thing?
Well, we've already added about 1.5 minutes to the end of the song.
Nice.
So. And that'll just, as our confidence grows, or I think maybe just the need to change things up when you're on the road, to reinvent the song on a nightly basis so that it stays new, or at least offers you new opportunities to be creative. Then you start finding, you expand the middle section, the bridge becomes twice as long as it was on the record, and then certainly the outro.
That's interesting. So what song has changed? I'm trying to think of the last time I saw you, it's a few years ago now, but what song has changed the most live from the recorded version?
Well, we have this song, Mind Flood, from our second record, Chemical City, and it basically is up to about 22 minutes in length now. And the original
Dave Matthews song, that's awesome.
It's a 5-minute song on the record. So it's not a short song on the record, but it's nowhere near. It's 17 minutes shorter than the way we play it now. And that one just seems to offer the most opportunity to keep building on it. And but there's certainly others that have undergone some pretty significant transformation.
I can imagine it keeps things fresh for you too,
yeah,
right?
I mean, I think the audience needs to feel that you're sort of still engaged in the creative process, and not just going through the motions up there, and not just sort of falling back on the muscle memory that comes from hours and hours of repetition and rehearsal. They need to feel that there's a spontaneity and an urgency to your performance and your playing, and thinking off the cuff like that is certainly one of the ways to bring that out.
How do you come across on a record then? I mean, I know you did this in like 12 days, right? So everything must have been rehearsed, ready to go. You go in the studio, you have the songs finished. So how do you keep that spontaneity?
Well, I think recording live off the floor, at least trying to get the basis of the record done live, keeps that energy of a performance in the record, and that's pretty difficult to come by if you're building up, stacking tracks one after another. Eventually you just sort of have this huge collage of takes and tracks, and you don't really know where the heart of the song is. But when it's just the 5 of us set up playing, you always feel you're sort of using the energy in the room, and it's a physical energy that comes from sound and watching everybody move, reacting to each other. That energy goes into the recording somehow, and that's very much at the heart of this record, more so than anything we've ever done before.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I think for us as a band that tours, we spend our lives touring essentially, it's important to have that spirit in our records, and hopefully from now on we have the courage and to keep doing it, because it's a bit more daunting than
how so?
Than just tracking, because when you track something, you just redo it or you edit it, or but if it's a live performance, then if somebody blows a tire, then you have to go right back to the beginning, and you could be halfway through the song and feel like you're sort of playing it as well as you ever will, and then all of a sudden you're back to square one because your guitar string breaks or whatever it is.
Are there any songs on that where you kept like I love those happy accidents. Like Randy Bachman told me once about, I can't remember what Guess Who song, but one of them they were like, nah, we like that chord. Like, I don't care if you hit a B minor, it's supposed to be an A minor.
Right. And then it ends up being the one sort of most identifiable
exactly.
part
So
of
did
it.
that happen? I mean,
that happens all
over
the
the course
time.
of any records.
That happens all the time.
Something for people to listen to and be like, oh, there it is.
I mean, there are two songs on this record in particular that are essentially
Low Fantasy in stores now.
Are accidents. Well, they were barely controlled chaos anyway. And our producer Youth said to go into to the live room, take 4 chords, play them over and over again, and let's see if a song can be born right here and now, rather than this again.
What song is that? Did it make the record?
2 of them made the record.
Nice.
Although we were highly skeptical at the beginning that either of them were going to turn into songs at all, because they just feel like these, very repetitive, sort of amorphous blobs of music that have no shape to them. But sure enough, just through that process of playing together, they start to build in intensity in certain points, and those became the choruses, and then they would sort of come down into more of a sort of steady groove, and that would become the verse. And sure enough, after about half an hour, it had taken shape. It didn't have lyrics, it didn't have words or anything, but he was adamant that I go and focus on writing and coming up with melodies, coming up with lyrics, and even at that point I was still skeptical that these were ever going to be songs of any merit, and 2 of them ended up bumping off these other songs that we'd worked really hard on for a year to sort of polish and put together, but they just seemed to capture the spirit of the recording session and this record to a T. And yeah, so I'm not going to tell you what they are, though.
No, I was waiting for the answers.
No, that was this whole story is leading to the cliffhanger.
And then you're just going to leave it.
Now you have to guess.
Okay.
But there's a clue. The chords never change, because again,
listen back to the record.
It's born out of just an experimental jam, but the chords never change. So that's
talk about experiments, though. Like I just got this deluxe edition here, and it's a bunch of every song is remixed. How much input did you have, or did you just say go nuts?
I said go nuts. I think you can't try to exercise any kind of creative control over that part of the process. That to me is one of the real really interesting things about having electronic remixes of your music done, is that you're really handing it over, and you never know what you have to be prepared to sort of love or hate whatever comes back, but to live with it anyway. And Youth and his partners and assistants are very much at home in that world, as much as they are in the rock and roll world, and they just drift back and forth without sort of putting up buffers or categories. And that's one of the things that drew me to him as a producer, was that there was going to be that drift, and just having access to that part of his experience, and seeing how that could affect what we do in some way, because the elements were there in our demos, but we needed somebody to sort of go in and grab them and pull them to the forefront. So the remixes were happening basically simultaneously with the tracking of the record. You walk out of the live room or the control room, and it's a soundproof door, and you open the door, and you'd hear Youth or a DJ, his DJ Eddie Banda, coming up with a full-on, rave remix in the next of the same song that you're tracking the rock and roll version of it.
That's
so
cool.
It was a really interesting.
Did any of those things influence the way? Did you hear something and go back and be like, no, we got to do it that way now?
For sure, Chasing the Light on this record is.
The drum machine, the synth. Yeah, that's the one I wrote. I was like, it sounds like a.
Well, that we basically just all the tracks from the sort of rock and roll version of it ended up becoming replaced or being replaced and shoved aside in favor of this, what we felt was a more compelling
cool arrangement.
Direction.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, it was essentially the fully electronic version of it.
I do want to talk about the shows a little bit, because every time you add a record, songs are going to disappear, songs are going to get added. Like where are you at with a set list now?
Well, so far it's been easy, because we're just playing the record back to front.
Back to front?
No, sorry, front to back.
That'd be interesting. You should try that.
Back to front. We'll do that next. That'll be the next version. But so we just for these shows, we played in New York last night, and we played in Toronto, and play in Montreal, and these are our release shows, and we're just playing the record start to finish, and it's essentially the only time we'll ever do that, because like you say, after that, then it becomes about the challenge of finding what the show for this tour is going to be, and like you say, there are going to be certain songs that don't make the cut, certain songs that you're less comfortable with. Which old material do you pull in? Because it can be a little jarring, especially a record like this, going back to the beginning, and you have this juxtaposition.
Yeah, it fits with Collider though. There's a lot of that.
Collider is very so far. Last night we played a few Collider songs, and it was pretty seamless. And there's definitely a link. But at the same time, you don't want to exclude all the stuff that we still love to play it, but you have to find a way to sort of fit it all together.
Sure. Without
saying, okay, well, this is going to be the We Were Born in a Flame segment of the show, and this is going to be whatever. So I don't know is the answer. We're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, when are we going to see it? I know you got a U.S. run going on.
Well, that'll be the testing ground.
Good, yeah, test it down there so we get the...
We're going to go down there, we're going to polish up our act, and then we'll come back when we've got something going on.
Tell me about Dave's record.
Yeah, Dave has it's not a side project, it's his thing, The Last Son. And he went off back to Pembroke, Ontario, where he's from, and made a record with friend Jordan Zadarozny. It sounds great. Dave's a great songwriter and player. As anybody who's seen the band play knows that Dave's a hell of a guitar player, but he also sings like a bird, and he's a great songwriter too. So he went and made this record, and it was just great to see him doing his thing. This band takes up so much of our time and energy and focus that anytime somebody can go off, and Dave's not the only one. Eric's been our keyboard player, works on his own music. James, does his own thing too, and our drummer Josh. We know drummers, they can't sit still for more than 5 minutes, so they always go and play with different projects too. So I'm sure there's a lot more to come.
Okay, so last time we spoke, I Feel You told me it was called Candide Falcone and Auditory Hallucination in 2 parts.
Yes, that was the original title.
The original. So I want to know if
I should have stayed with that one.
I love that title. Were there any insane working titles for this record?
Man, I have to think about that. The problem with working titles now is that they end up determining the song and what they're about. So I have to be a lot more careful with what I call a song right off the top.
Interesting.
Because it becomes that song. So if I say Human Heat, that was just a word. I didn't know what that was it was just a phrase. But that was what I was getting back from the music, so it's a Human Heat. And all of a sudden it just becomes a song about that, about sort of, panic and an identity crisis in the face of an overwhelming city. But so if I call something, if I say the word shapeshifters, all of a sudden I'm writing about shapeshifters. So I'm trying to rein in my working titles because they don't change. But I really should have stayed with the Candide Falcone.
I Feel You works too.
Yeah.
Human Heat, good segue into the new single. When are we going to see a video?
Well, a video for that one, we did something with Much Music recently, actually, an experimental animated sort of video short of it, and we made a full-blown video for Shapeshifters, which is actually coming out in about 10 days from now.
Nice.
So not even actually. So we're the record's done and the record's out now, but there's still sort of hopefully a lot of creative outlets that come from it in different directions, and certainly making videos and trying to capture the other aspects of the music are still playing a part.
Right. So we've done this before. I want to see if these answers are the same. 5 questions, 5 quick questions, 1-word answers. Road or studio?
Studio.
Lennon or McCartney?
Lennon.
When you hear a song, what usually hits you first? Lyrics, melody, or rhythm?
Rhythm.
If someone's never heard Sam Roberts Band before, what song do they start with?
Let It In.
In 1 word, Sam Roberts Band.
Alive.
Nice. That's great, man. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's what were my answers before? I don't.
I wrote them down.
It was still
Studio
Lennon.
was the first time. Yeah, Lennon
Yeah.
every time. You said studio
Yeah.
and road. M is melody. I don't know what the hell. Oh, booze, because alcohol or marijuana used to be one of them.
Oh, right. Right.
Bridge nowhere both times.
Oh, yeah?
And foolish
And this time I
small.
said,
I thought you were going to say clams.
clams.